Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flush and Bad, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different Marlin deck. I was kind of initially inspired by this screenshot from I think Shoma's Twitter, and he was basically playing like a very like red line version of Marlin at like one of his armories or something. So I was kind of inspired by that list and also just like a couple of new cards like Settle the Bill and like the Redler Harpoon to kind of try to like build a more like red heavy version of Marlin. So let me kind of explain the logic here basically. Um, the thought is basically you're gonna have like some of the off turns where you're like, okay, well maybe like we don't have enough blues to like send a king shark or whatever. So on those like off turns, what we can potentially do is maybe just stack a bunch of buffs on a goldfin. So we have like the pre-meds, the settle the bills, and also like the cheating scoundrels and like all of our other kind of good buffs. So that's kind of like the idea is to basically like on the turns where we don't draw enough blues, we just like play like a big goldfin and see if that kind of gets the job done. Now, is this good? So historically, sending Goldfin harpoons has been like a little bit mid, just because that like you basically don't have like the on hits or like the necessarily like support to kind of like make them work, and then also like it makes your deck a little bit worse. But we're gonna be trying it anyway, so I kind of wanted to like maintain a lot of the ratios that I saw from that screenshot and just try to like kind of play around with the new cards to see if like maybe a build like this can work. Now, the big downside of this build is basically this deck does not block very well, basically, and like we also have a ton of reds in our deck, so like the chances of bricking kind of go up exponentially. So there are definitely like a lot of matchups where I think this list is like strictly worse than kind of like the streamlined 36 blue list. But I think it's still worth kind of like experimenting with and trying it out because I do think there's a lot of like really interesting high roll potential in this deck. Or if you go like double buff free oak, that's like one of the strongest things you could do in Marlin. So like the upping the odds of doing that, I think is like pretty reasonable. But that being said, there is like a fairly substantial drawback. So pros and cons here. But yeah, I kind of want to just try out this list and just kind of play around with a few couple new things and just kind of see what works and what doesn't. I've also probably cut down on battering bolts for now. So we're actually having like a pretty big conversation in like the purple Discord about battering bolts. And I think like battering bolts once Acilio is like significantly less powerful with like the new bans and stuff is probably going to be like definitely on the chopping block. I think that maybe Settle the Bill just like ends up taking the sideboard space over Battering Bolt just in the matchups where you like don't want either one of the harpoons basically. But we're gonna run it like main deck as a 2 for now and kind of just see how it performs. But yeah, this is gonna be the deck list for today, so let's go ahead and get into the games. All right, it's playing against a Ziggy, so this should be a fun one. Let's go ahead and bring in our transfer AB1. I think I'm also gonna run Quiver as well. They're gonna choose to go first, so let's go ahead and bring in Honing Hood going first. I think seems reasonable. And then do we want any sideboard for Ziggy? I know some of them are a little bit more defensive, so maybe bringing a tie over like a Tip the Barkeep makes sense. Could even consider bringing in Riches and just try to go for like the Omega High Roll. I think I actually kind of like that. Let's maybe try something like this and kind of see how it goes. Okay. Interesting opening hand. Not amazing here. We're kind of like hoping that they attack into us at some point so we can kind of just get some of these cards out of our hand. The one pretty big downside here of I think we're actually like kind of forced to block this, which is kind of funny. The one pretty big downside of like this particular hand is like we don't have the harpoon, and like Settle the Bill without the goldfin activation is like also pretty rough. Let's go ahead and just give them the Codex and the catch of the day here. Hope to kind of just load the Settle the Bill and draw 3 fresh new cards. I feel like we have a lot of pretty decent cards in the deck. We're actually kind of getting like punished for overblocking this, which is kind of funny. So hopefully the double lightning flow doesn't come back to punish us, but very well might here. All right, let's go ahead and load in our Settle Bill. Yeah, giving Ziggy 2 flows on turn. I mean, I suppose in that situation we're like always giving them 1 flow, right? But maybe giving 2 flows is like a little bit awkward. Okay, so we do have Settle the Bill into a Shallow Water. So notably, Settle the Bill does get a lot better when you kind of keep a 5-card hand with it. But definitely gets a bit worse like once you kind of like go to a lower kind of card count hand. But hopefully we should be able to get them here. So they would need to block. What is this? This is 12 total. I feel like Hook's not quite safe just because we don't know what kind of Ziggy they are yet. They might end up being like some kind of like aggressive Ziggy. Okay. So we get to do a Shallow Water Shark Harpoon. Very nice. All right, looks like they're playing another Sigil. So going to 3 flows. So they definitely have like as much flow generation kind of as they want to here. I'm hoping that maybe they arsenal a card that we can kind of snipe here. What's actually kind of funny is if this is like D-React from Arsenal, they can actually like pay it, which is pretty sick. Okay, Blur Reality. So that'll flicker at their Sigil of Astral Flow. So I guess they got like, how much value is a Lightning Flow worth? I feel like it's not that high of value, but I guess they did at least kind of dodge the settled the shark water. So hold on, I can't even speak. I guess they did dodge the shallow water shark harpoon plus settle thing. Okay. The one awkward part about next hand is we don't have gold, but we do have the extra Codex of Bloodrots in the deck, so that could maybe bail us out here. As well as just like the 3 oaks and other stuff. Okay, there is a nice bailout, 3 oak. Love it. Again, a little bit risky, like playing off the no gold for sure. When this fragments amp 1, whenever sits hero, you may banish an Ori, permanent control, no hollow counters. So they don't, we know that they have that other blue in hand, so they can't actually do anything with this. I think I'm just going to keep the hand just so we can kind of push a lot of damage here. Yeah, the on-hit on this shouldn't matter because they don't really have anything to bounce. Which I imagine with like more support, they're probably going to get like more tools to kind of actually be able to deal with, like get like more of a punish out of the bounce there. All right, let's go ahead and just discard off the top here. I imagine we're probably keeping these 2 cards unless something very strange happens. Okay, I have a Fidia off the top. I don't really want to discard that, but I think it's like maybe correct. Feels bad. All right, but hopefully we hit some blues off our 3 oak here. Okay, that's actually quite good. Only awkward thing is the riches, which I guess we can just like go ahead and pitch here. Riches being a little bit clunky. We could also just like cycle the gold for like a random arsenal, but I think that's like probably not worth. Yeah, King Shark for 14, never bad, with some pretty nasty on hits as well. So I think like the value proposition of this deck might just be that like you can more aggressively 3 oak, with the downside of like your other turns being a little bit less consistent. So you have a Scattering, Conflux, as well as these pull. How do they play like both of these though? Interesting. So I guess we should take the yellow so that they can't like play out the sigil there. Feels weird. Yeah, a lot of these like 2-cost Ziggy cards don't quite make sense yet until we see like the full set reveal. I'm actually recording this, I think, before like the world premiere in Prague. So maybe by the time that this video comes out, we might be like seeing more of the cards. But for right now, like the 2 costs, I feel like don't make as much sense in Ziggy as like the 0 costs. That's like my initial evaluation, but we still have a lot more of the set to see. All right, let's go ahead and just eat 7 here. Just kind of walk down to 28, and then we basically have as many resources as we want here. So let's go ahead and crack like a couple gold, I think, here. Okay, King Kraken might mean we're going to put a pause on that, actually, and just kind of commit to this Kraken. I don't imagine the Kraken's actually going to hit much into Ziggy, but it does deal at least 10 damage, which is good. Then we can maybe set up for like a decent next turn. Shouldn't be too bad here. Okay, get to connect for 5, and then what do we see here? I think 2 instants, and then just the Clear Conscience as well. Okay, so I don't actually know fully what their hand is. Maybe their hand makes a bit more sense with the remaining card, but they could actually try to go for like a big Orc Shards play, especially with like the Starfield Veil still up. I could see that being the case. But let's go ahead and just Arsenal the Kraken for now. Try to set up for like a big next turn. Okay, and this hand I think is pretty good. Probably just going to, okay, they have the Cosmic Duality. And then they're going to like Auric Shards on this or something. So they're going to be pushing a lot of damage, so we might as well just like maybe cash in the equipment here. This does also have fragments, so like maybe we want to fragment this. We could give them the Codex of Frailty, but I feel like that's probably not worth it. So we go ahead and just give them the Sea Lace just so we get the first fragments, or like functionally blocking like 5 with our equipment here. And then on the second fragment, like you're going to be able to like Orc Shards here, but I think that's like probably fine. So imagine what they're going to be doing is like playing out the Flicker just to like bounce this, which is pretty cool. I think Orc Shards is gonna definitely be a lot better once we like see a bit more of the card pool. Oh, okay. It seems like maybe they just want to scoop to that. That's fair. Let's kind of see what they were cooking here, though. It seems like they're pretty heavy on just the fragment stuff. I still feel like we're kind of like missing a payoff for it, though. But yeah, I expect to see good things from Ziggy. I think that they have like a lot of potential, and like we're still missing like a decent portion of the card pool. So I'd kind of expect that they'll kind of just get better once we kind of like see the rest of the set. Okay, let's go ahead and get another one. All right, we got a Betsy. This is actually kind of like a little bit of a tougher matchup. Definitely not quite as easy as it used to be, but let's go ahead and bring in Base of the Mountain, and I think Honing Hood going second seems good. So the reason that this matchup got like a little bit tougher is just because they're a lot more disruptive, which is kind of scary. But yeah, Betsy's like surprisingly playable now. Like a lot of the other expansion slot cards are pretty good. Oh, it looks like we also have a fan. All right, looks like we got a little bit of a lackluster opener here. Okay, but they are going to go for the wager, so we could consider giving some armor here, but I think that's probably not correct. I think what we're supposed to do is maybe do something like this and just pitch to Quiver of Rustling Leaves, since we don't really have like a great arsenal target. There's like some incentive to like maybe give up like Gold Beta Hook plus Tunic, but I feel like doing that on turn 1 is probably wrong. It's like tempting though to like just get our first gold. Okay, they also have these suspenses killing me. Very spicy. Sure. So let's go ahead and Quiver here, see if we can just hit a random arrow off the top. Okay, C4 Salvage, not going to cut it. Yeah, a bit of an awkward opener there. I guess we could follow up with a Yellowfin Harpoon, but that's like so mid. I guess it does at least generate our first gold, which is maybe better than nothing. But yeah, not incredibly exciting here. I guess if we can maybe steal their gold, it does kind of keep them off just kind of snowballing value with the Chapeau. So they are kind of incentivized to block this, but still, I don't know. Yellowfin Harpoon against like most decks is never incredibly powerful, I guess. So I don't actually know if this deck in particular has like an advantage into Betsy, because you maybe have like a little bit more high roll potential, but I don't know if that's actually like that real. Okay, and it seems like they have the Sync Blow here. Makes sense as well. So yeah, I'm a little bit scared that they're just gonna like kind of log us to death from this position. Log is like surprisingly kind of hard for this deck to block. Okay, there's also a lot of Red Lure Harpoons. But I guess I can never complain about seeing a 3-oak. Okay, and they're just going to go for buff power here. So I think we're going to go ahead and cash in a little bit of life here. And then they do give us a prime target for Red Lure Harpooning, so that is kind of nice. So let's go ahead and try to keep maybe even resolve Red Lure here and just kind of see if we can try to pressure them with the E-Strike. But yeah, this matchup has gotten like a lot scarier, just kind of like post-compendium. It's surprising how much work the log actually ends up doing. Like I've had people actually like tell me this matchup is unfavored, which I kind of like believe almost. I think I'm going to prioritize the Red Lure because it might be a little bit more disruptive than the Bluefin. I actually don't know if that's correct. I feel like taking the E-Strike or the CNC is like kind of appealing to me, but maybe that's like also greedy. I could see like Bluefin actually being like maybe a bit better because it incentivizes them to like not swing log next turn. I feel like both ways they kind of have to respect it, but like if we do the Bluefin play, then they can't like CNC pummel us or something, which is maybe a bit more worth it. Okay, we do get to connect with the Red Lure. I think the safe play is to just take the E-Strike since that's like more easily castable than the CNC. Like we kind of need Go Again to make the CNC work, whereas E-Strike we can like give it Go Again by kind of sacrificing a Goldfin. Ooh, but this is looking like a very nice hand. Especially if we can kind of catch them on maybe a little bit of an off turn here. Okay, they're going to go for the Chapeau. So maybe looking at, okay, a Boulder Drop, sure. Boulder Drop wagered. Seems pretty good. So how do we want to do this? There's a couple options here, so we can block this out, which is at least nice. The only problem is that we are going to give them like the might and the vigor on hit, which shouldn't matter too much. But it's not amazing. Kind of trying to think if there's like actually like a more creative way to block here, but I think we're going to try to gamble here and maybe just try to hit the harpoon off the top. And I guess for now, what we can flip over is maybe just actually know what matters. I don't want to flip over the CNC because we have like the chance to recast it, but maybe it's actually right to flip over the CNC just in case they try to fire it off at us off a codex or something. It could definitely be awkward in the future. All right, so the important thing with E-Strike is that we do have to do it before we kind of commit here. So let's go ahead and Marlin and then E-Strike go again, just to get in a bit of value. And having this be a 0 for 5 is pretty sick off the red lure. Although I think like looking back on it, it's definitely probably correct to just send the bluefin harpoon there. I kind of just like playing with the new cards, I guess is my main logic. All right, let's go and play cheating, and then we're gonna really hope to not brick here. I think I'm actually not even supposed to play this catch of the day in case we need like quiver or something. Which we will need to end up doing here. So oh my god, the quiver bailed us out. Okay, that's actually really sick. So I think, given that they're playing Betsy, seems like it's a bit more of an aggressive variant. I think I'm going to get a little bit greedy with the hook here. And we do have the cheating sounder worst case scenario to kind of back it up. But that quiver of Wrestling Leaves actually came in super clutch. This is another card I think I've been kind of eyeing for a bit, just because like it might give you a bit more consistency into like just kind of like the field if you're kind of not bringing in Abyssal Quiver, especially with like the new harpoon. I think that kind of like pushes it over the top because there's a lot more like good hits that you can actually get off quiver as opposed to like Sleep Dart or just like Drill Shot or some of the other kind of like crappier blues. Okay, but we do connect here. It looks like they have a drink on the table, so more likely than not, we're probably just going to have to eat the damage from that next turn, which is fine. Okay, we can block some of it if we wanted to here. So if we give up all of our armor, we can block 9 exactly, which I don't think is very exciting. I think more likely than not, what we're supposed to do here is just take the damage and then try to just go for like a big kind of Goldfin turn. Hopefully try to take care of their arsenal if they do end up arsenaling here. So yeah, unfortunately we do kind of have to eat the damage. And this is like kind of like one of the scarier cards I feel like Betsy has access to. Just like Drink on their table being like a on hit or yeah, basically on hit, draw a card, discard a card is like pretty nuts. All right, let's go and start with the big game trophy shop, but we do have to be a bit careful about the loading here. So we actually have a couple options. We could try to how do we make this work? Could actually ditch the settle and play the Goldfin instead, which comes in for 10. Threatens a gold on hit, seems pretty good. Or we could take the greedier line and try to send like a big Goldfin, but we have to draw blue is the only downside to that. And it would also require us cracking our gold, so maybe it's better and safer to just try to arsenal the bluefin here. But yeah, let's maybe just send this in for 10 and kind of see if it does some work. We do also have to be a little bit cautious about their tension in the air popping next turn. It's definitely going to be a bit scary. Okay, we drew another 3 oak though, so that is pretty big for us. Ooh, and they're doing the 4 log. Okay, but they cannot overpower it. This is a bit of an interesting one. That is also like a particularly bad hand. I think we're supposed to try to capitalize on this and just try to steal that gold back next turn because our hand is like really good and I don't really want to give them cards here. So yeah, I think in this case, let's go ahead and just take the damage here, kind of even out the life totals, but hopefully we're going to be sending some good disruption next turn. So let's start with the Rabble and kind of just see what we hit off the top. Okay, Codex of Blood Rot. It could actually not be bad here if we want to just like draw into that. It does strain the resources a little bit here, so we need to draw a couple blues off the top. Ooh, it looks like we did not draw blues. That is unfortunate. I think maybe the greedier, like the less greedy line was to just like keep two floating there, which I think maybe makes more sense in like the lower blue count build. I think I definitely got like punished for that though. Let's go ahead and I guess gold baited hook here since it is kind of free. I think that the misplay there was probably trying to dig for that Codex of Blood Rot. Like maybe it just wasn't worth it because we were gonna like Codex, we were gonna 3-oak anyways, right? And then we could have like kept an arsenal after that. I think I maybe just saw a bit too much greed there with the Codex of Blood Rot. Like leaving that on top and having two floating basically means we're like never bricking on this hand. I think even if we are like able to send like Bluefin for 11, that puts us in like a much better spot, I think. But yeah, unfortunately, also the Ponder token is not going to be very useful here. All right, we'll lose the wager, discard card, and then hope to kind of just swing back a little next turn. Okay, double down, very scary. This card has like actually gotten so much better because you just get like the free overpower and the +3. Makes it significantly scarier. Right, coming for 10, which is basically our life total at this point. So let's go ahead and block with the shallow water shark harpoon and maybe just try to hopefully brick them on the next turn with our king shark. We might have to try to draw into a pump here just so we can kind of get over the top because currently right now we're seeing at 8. I wonder if the king shark is good enough on its own right now or if we need to like actually draw better here because what my concern is that they just like kill us with pile driver. But I guess they shouldn't be able to kill us with pile driver on this hand yet, right? So maybe we're safe like one more turn because we still have like the armor that we can kind of throw in front of it. I also think like base of the mountain with how like a lot of these newer Betsy lists are kind of shaking out is maybe like a bit worse than I'm kind of giving it credit for because I feel like they don't really have too much dominate. It's really just like machos randomly or like random Terra Sunders that this kind of like affects. So like maybe just the Sarong is better on the whole. Let's go ahead and try to steal the gold here. This might be a little bit greedy. We've seen like 2 sync or 1 sync below, I think. So the odds of them blocking this are lowish unless they like give us Chapeau or Tunic. Like they could go like 3 block, 4 block, Tunic, and quick dodge and then cover it that way. So this is maybe a little bit of a greedy hook, but I think we kind of have to go for it here. It seems like they maybe even have a block card here or some kind of instant. Okay, they have the suspense is killing me, sure. So if we can get them good here, we might be in okay shape, but it looks like they're popping quick dodge for sure. And the question is, do they have a follow-up react? Okay, it looks like they do not. So let's take a peek, I guess, at the remaining cards and see if we can maybe catch them off here. Okay, double rouse is very good for us. So this means that they can't swing. Or I guess they could swing pile driver by sacking a gold and drawing into a blue. I think that's probably their best option here. But if they don't draw the blue, this is particularly painful. And maybe they didn't draw it there, unfortunate. So I think we're gonna maybe just crack a bit of gold here. I actually don't even think we port side. So maybe just like pitch the port side just so we're going kind of up on resources here. And now we have a 16 damage turn. Do we want to go a little bit deeper? I think so. Let's go ahead and go for like the big play, right? And then I think we're looking for like one more buff maybe. Codex of Blood Rot is kind of a buff, but also kind of not. I guess we can like Codex of Blood Rot. Oh, it's actually like going. Hold on. Sorry. Let's go and do this. All right. I think we can actually Codex of Blood Rot into the Codex of Frailty. So I think this actually works out if I'm doing my math correctly. So we draw off the gold, and then we settle the bill into our arsenal. The King Kraken, play the Codex of Blood Rot, play the Cheating Scoundrel, pull Tunic, and then we get to swing for. This is basically like an 18 damage turn cycle because of the Ponder and the Blood Rot. And then we get a Codex and Arsenal, which basically like kind of guarantees we're not breaking next turn. So that ended up being like a really solid line. And I guess like this is kind of like the upside of playing a lot more reds is that you get to like kind of have these like a lot taller turns at the cost of like your consistency and whatever. There are pros and cons. I don't think necessarily either is more correct than the other one. It just kind of like depends how the meta shakes out, I think, a little bit. All right, so they do have 2 blues in hand, but if we can manage to block them out here, they die to the Blood Rot. So this is coming in for 7, and we have 6 armor, so I think we just barely kind of survive here, which is good enough. Or, whoops, sorry, hold on. One more time. All right, go ahead and give them base the mountain as well, and throw the Kraken in front of it. And then our next hand was going to be like pretty bad, so fortunately they do die to the Blood Rot here, which is cool. But yeah, I think that like this matchup has gotten definitely a little bit scarier. I think that like Betsy is in like kind of an interesting position if Victor eats a lot of nerfs, because like it seems like your Victor matchup is still like pretty bad on the whole, but you can like kind of win some of the clashes. So like maybe it's not like completely unwinnable, and you still have definitely like a bit of a kind of like aggressive slanted angle that the deck kind of can take. So I feel like Betsy is like actually not the worst deck in the world right now. It's definitely like it depends a lot how I guess like BNRs and stuff will shake out, but I think it's like kind of surprisingly good if you like actually kind of like sit across from it. All right, but let's go ahead and see if we can get another. All right, playing against a Teklovossen. Teklovossen, I don't know. Like I feel like this matchup's still like fairly free, but you do have to be like a little bit more careful if they're like boost Teklo. Boost Teklo can definitely kind of catch you off guard. But let's go ahead and try to go first here and just kind of push some aggression. I don't even think we want anything in the sideboard. Generally, you don't even need like Attaya or Riches or Remembrance in a Teklo. It's just like kind of beat them up and do your best. Let's go ahead and maybe try the Quiver of Rustling Leaves, since I don't even think we necessarily need to fatigue them. All right, they are on the fatigue Teklo strategy, but I think I kind of just like ripping the 3 oak and kind of hoping for the best here. Like we're going to probably be able to fatigue Teklo even if they are running 72 cards in their deck. But let's go ahead and pitch the Codex for second cycle, I think. And just hope to kind of get lucky with an arrow here. So I think since we have the pre-med, I'm kind of also fine like pitching the 3 oak. And this is actually like kind of a nasty second cycle, because we get to save like these buffs all next to the 3 oak, which is pretty good. And then I guess we get to just fire in for 11 on hit Ponder here, which is pretty sick. So like the buff density does mean that like you are potentially having some like high rolls on your 3 oak turns, which may or may not be like fully necessary, but it's still pretty cool. All right, so they are going to give us some block cards and some armor there. Sure. Again, I'm still like fairly confident just because of the way that Teklo is built that we do have like a pretty good chance of just punching through anyways. I think if we maybe wanted to be like a little bit less greedy, we could have maybe considered oh, actually we need to hold on. Sorry, we need to not actually C4 salvage here. I guess we could just go for a port side. It's like a little bit fatigue risky, but if we draw like a pump here, we're like pretty happy. I think Redfin is actually kind of like a fine substitute here because it means we just like get to threaten the hook and then sandbag the Codex for next turn. Notably with the Codex, we're going to be getting Redfin anyway, so it's basically kind of like the same play. Except maybe next turn we get to like block with a King Shark or a Kraken or something, and then we're kind of up more substantially. I guess Redfin also kind of like insulates us from like getting hit by a bunch of like boost cards or Theoryx or whatever, like if they want to like hold back or something. Okay, it looks like we got a couple more firewalls, sure. So just need to basically fight through the react pile here. I'm kind of curious to see if we're actually going to be able to like fully make it through, because it is like a little bit suspect. I'm definitely concerned about the state of the fatigue here. All right, let's go ahead and go for Cook's Blood Rot, Pitch, Full Tunic, and then just send in for another Redfin here. So we're at least getting like kind of 8 value on this turn cycle. Or like 10-ish, I guess. If it depends if they like pay for the Blood Rot or not. Which I feel like as Teklo, it's like fairly easy to pay. Again, I'm kind of curious if we actually would have liked to have the quiver. I feel like most of the time in this matchup, it like doesn't matter though. That's what experience tells me, but it is definitely like scary knowing that they like present their entire deck into you. Okay, another sync as well. Sure. So hopefully we can get a nice double ponder here. Okay, King Shark is great. And we do just kind of need to keep up the pressure a bit. Okay, CNC is definitely a bit annoying though. I guess we could like just go ahead and give up the Kraken and the cheating and just try to send in the King Shark, I think is smart. No real reason to take a ton of damage here. And we are getting like +4 out of our cannon every turn, so should still be in good shape. Again, I think what they're trying to do is basically like try to disrupt me every turn, while what I'm trying to do is basically like kind of kill them before that matters. All right, we got our first couple points of the damage on the board. So maybe this actually like bodes well for just bringing the quiver to respect fatigue. That's possible. I feel like I've been seeing also like a lot more boost Teklo and Talishar lately, so maybe I'm getting punished for playing into too much boost Teklo. Okay, we really need a blue off the top here. I think red or yellow could be really annoying here. Right, fortunately we hit those. So let's go ahead and just keep trying to keep them off of their big attacks. But yeah, the immovables are also like definitely a little bit of a point of concern. Teklo will eventually draw a hand that doesn't have a D-React, is what I try to tell myself. Right, yeah, Fate, sure. They will hopefully run out of D-Reacts eventually. Maybe one day. I am a little bit concerned because we are off of gold, which will make like setting up some of our future turns a little bit more difficult. Okay, we do have C4 salvage to kind of at least threaten some gold here, which I think we're going to go for. Good turnover. I guess that's all you got. And then just keep firing in here. Coming in for 12 and also threatening the hook is pretty big here for us. But yeah, fighting through the entire direct pile is definitely a bit of a fun experience. Never gets old, for sure. Alright, so we get instant and then a blue, sure. Most important thing is we're pushing at least 7 damage there, which is good. Or I guess 5 damage, because I think they already took 2. Okay, War Machine we don't mind, because we went off an Arsenal, so that's great for us. Alright, let's go ahead. I would like maybe a slightly better Harpoon here. Oh, we got 3 of a kind, though. Okay, maybe in this case, let's go ahead and just like convert our Murderous Rebel, and then just try to hit off the top, I think. Again, the most important thing that you can kind of do in Fatigue is just like making sure you activate Cannon every turn. It's pretty important just in terms of like getting the max value over the course of the game, right? The more turns you activate Hammerhead, like the more cards you're kind of like putting in your deck. So like even if we're not boarding for Fatigue, we might still just be able to fatigue the Teklovossen here, depending on kind of how this shakes out. All right, let's go ahead and pull our Tunic. This will kind of fix this hand pretty nicely here. And again, we do also have a lot of buffs for second cycle when our deck is like a little bit more blue heavy. So this should be pretty good for us, I think. And the pre-med should also kind of help out a little bit here. All right, so peek at their hand. They have Singularity and the Battlefield Bastion. So maybe they're going to try to set the Singularity in Arsenal or something. Would probably make sense to me. Again, we're going to try to hopefully clear that unfortunate brick off the top. But that's okay. You can just choose not to Arsenal there. Okay, they're going to pitch the Singularity for later, which I think is smart. All right, definitely have a couple more D-Reacts we still got to fight through here. But let's keep fighting. So probably going to be looking to discard... So we actually have an option here, which is to discard the cheating and just send it in for 10 and try to set an Arsenal, which I think is probably like the safer bet. And it like gives us a little bit more fatigue equity because we're saving the big harpoon. The one downside is this does kind of play a bit into War Machine, but I'm going to kind of just hope that they don't draw it this turn. Okay, Fabricate shouldn't be too big of a deal, though. Okay, they are going to be able to, I guess, get their legs out. So we do still have to be a little bit aware of, I guess, Singularity in the second cycle. We're still, I think, in a pretty reasonable spot here. All right, let's hope to connect here. So this will give us our gold back, which is great. And then we're still kind of just beating down here, which is awesome. Cool. Teklo took a turn off, which is great for us because it means we get to kind of capitalize on just a free 10 damage hand. And as you can kind of see here, like, even though they presented like 70-something cards into us, like, we're still kind of just walking them down because, like, they have to give us like 3 cards every turn to our 1 card, basically. So we get like plus 2 cards every turn if they're not like doing anything right. It's kind of like the fundamental problem with, I guess, just like blocking and fatigue, right? Is that like there are some decks that are like more efficient at like sending damage. I think that's like one of the cool things about Marlin is that fatigue is like if they're just doing like the blocking fatigue and not like a very disruptive fatigue, you can kind of get a lot of equity there. Okay, they got shelter, but again, they're still taking 5 through this, which is amazing for us. And again, they'll run out of D-Reacts eventually is kind of the motto here. Okay, so we have the option to take a little bit of a greedier line, which would put us off gold. So how many D-Reacts have we actually seen so far? This is also an important thing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm counting mostly the 0 for 4s because those are typically the ones that they have the most density of. So I think here we have a couple options. Basically, if we want to pump like super big, we'd go for the trophy shot, which I think is reasonable, sending in 14. The only downside to this is we could risk going off gold, but we draw a nice arsenal here, so maybe this still ends up kind of being fine. So let's go ahead and just send in for another 14 here. If we are hitting with this, we are still refreshing our gold anyways, and we don't necessarily need our gold because we have the bluefin in arsenal next turn. Connecting for 7 is great. So like as you can kind of see here, like even though they're like playing like all the D-Rex in the game, we're still kind of just getting a bit of equity from them not being able to block with their full armor suite here. Again, it's not to say that they can't like turn a corner here, but I think it's like still a very tough matchup for Teklo, even kind of if they are trying to do the thing right. All right, so let's go ahead and pitch the Hammerhead here and try to see if we can find a buff off the top. So Codex of Bloodrot kind of counts, kind of doesn't. I think let's go ahead and just... we could actually keep the Codex of Bloodrot. But I don't actually know if that's even good. Because we have to like crack the gold to get it. I think we're just like double bottoming here. Yeah, I think that seems fine. Let's go ahead and just like IP with the bluefin and try to arsenal the settle because we do have our tunic up. And then just come in for like a humble 8 here, which should at least force out some cards from hand, so maybe they can't hopefully hit us with like a Terminator tank or something kind of annoying next turn. But again, like they're playing basically every D-React in the game and we're still getting them to 13 on like turn 10, which is pretty good. Okay, that being said, they're going to gain a bit of life back here. So they're going to gain 3, basically. All right, not too bad. They go back up to 16. But at least we get another kind of free turn to kind of do whatever we want. So we're still like not really in that bad a spot here. Ooh, and I think Red Lure is actually going to be pretty nasty here. So this is like one of, I guess, the better use cases of Settle the Bill. Like when you have your Tunic up and you have Settle the Bill and you have like the blues and everything to kind of like make it work together. Like the card is very, very strong. I'm actually, I think I may have touched on this like a little bit earlier, but I'm very strongly just considering cutting Battering Bolt entirely for Settle the Bill at this point, just because I think that Battering Bolt is like, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils, I guess. Settle the Bill is kind of like clunky in its own ways, but Battering Bolt is like, I don't know, just a card that I kind of hate into, like, it's good into Warrior for sure, but like Warrior's already kind of like a bad matchup. So like having Settle the Bill to like smooth out your other matchups where like either King Kraken or King Shark is not good, I think is maybe a little bit more impactful. Lots to think about with Settle the Bill. Like I was initially a little bit down on this card because it's very clunky and conditional, but like I think if you can play around it, I think it's quite good. Like you have to like think a lot more about like how you're trying to set up your arsenals and hands and stuff. It's definitely I think a pretty skill testing card because of like how costed it is, I guess. All right, but definitely looking to hopefully grab one of their CNCs here if they let us have it. I mean, getting their arsenal and a CNC is going to be great here. The only awkward thing is that like we might not have the action points to necessarily CNC them next turn. But we'll hopefully try to have a bit of fun here if we end up drawing like a Tip the Barkeep or something. So unfortunately, no way to convert this hand just yet. How many of our big harpoons have we seen? I think we've seen all copies of our reds. So one option could be to just play the CNC out here, which would be annoying for them since they probably are running some number of D-Reacts in their hand. It would also let us C4 salvage, which you might not actually want to do all that much at this point. I think in terms of like deck value, which we could want to potentially consider here, let's go ahead and maybe just do this. Send in the CNC, maybe Arsenal the Codex. I guess this does give them the opportunity to just block with armor. Maybe this was actually bad. I was thinking that this would actually like get more value over the course of the game, but maybe that's not actually true. Maybe we're just like giving them more room here. Let's Arsenal the Codex for now. Codex could be a little awkward against War Machine, which I guess they have one left of. But we should still be in like a pretty fine spot here. We basically have like the same number of cards in deck at this point. I think I should have stuck to what I was kind of saying initially, like earlier on in the videos, maybe just trying to hammerhead every turn. Because like giving them the armor block there, I think was probably not worth. All right, but do have a couple action points here, so this might be a little bit of a scary turn. They like chain like CNC into like a Terminator tank or something, we might be in a bit of trouble. Oh, I hope I didn't manifest that. Little bit scary there. Okay, hopefully no Terminator tank to follow it up, I guess. But I think that might have been a punt on the last turn. Yeah, it's definitely a punt, I think. That's okay. We make mistakes, but we're still ahead for now, at least. As until they play the Terminator tank. Okay. Did not Terminator tank us, which is good. Okay, so I think this is still largely fine. I feel like I also know what the top card of my deck is. Do we have a buff on top? I feel like I remember pitching this. Is this our last 3-oak? I feel like I remember pitching this 3-oak with a buff. Am I crazy? I think I remember there being like either like a pre-med or a. I guess it's not cheating. Wait, how many pre-meds are we running? We're running 3 pre. I feel like there's a pre-med on top of our deck. Am I remembering this correctly? Because it's bad if I don't ever pre. I guess like it doesn't really change the play all that much. Let's go ahead and crack a goal because I think there is. Okay, maybe it was the Codex that was on top. That's a little bit more awkward. All right, let's go ahead and just 3 oak now. I thought there was like maybe another buff at some point that I missed. Let's go ahead and do this, and we can actually kind of do a funky thing with the quiver here and just kind of like, oh, actually, we can't do that. I guess we just like have to just hold on. Let me go back one more time. Let's go ahead and do this, I think, right? Because I think we want to discard this Murderous Rabble and keep the Codex. All right, and we'll do Codex here. Let's go ahead and grab. I think we're more incentivized to send Kraken at this point of the game because I feel like Singularity is like the one thing that kills us at this point. All right, so we definitely made like a pretty major punt the one CNC turn. Yeah, I think the CNT turn I was trying to just get a little bit too cute. I think if I thought about it for more than like 30 seconds, it was probably better to just cannon. Most of the time, it's always better to just cannon. All right, but we should hopefully be dodging another Terminator tank or something here. All right, coming in for 5 at the mainframe, sure. So I think this is okay. Let's go ahead and just block with our Sunken Treasure, get a little bit of value. And turn over like their Pulse Wave protocol or something. Actually, do they have one? They have a yellow, I guess is the question. Maybe not. Let's go ahead and just turn over a Blood Rot then. And then we can maybe just try to hit them with the Shallow here. Kind of chain it into next turn. All right, trust in the power of Overpower. Okay, how many D-Reacts do we still have left to deal with? So, still have 1 Sink Below, 2 Shelters, 1 Fate, no more Fiddler's Greens. Maybe 1 more Unmovable, and maybe 1 more That All You Got. So there's a Shelter. All right, still getting some good chip damage in. I'm kind of debating not arsenaling this Codex, because they do still have that 1 War Machine I'm a little concerned about. Hopefully they just hit us with the Terminator tank instead, though. I'm going to kind of need them to not disrupt me this turn, because I think if we convert this turn, then we probably win the game. Ooh, Pulse Wave Protocol. Attack real cards from hand, and then add it to the chain as a defending card. Sure. So you get to choose one of our cards, which is a little annoying. But we can maybe try to filter towards their blue just to kind of unbrick this hand. Imagine what they do is they take the blue. That's what I would probably do in this position. Could also consider maybe taking the trophy shot, but I feel like the blue is probably the safer line. Okay, they took pre-med instead. I don't know if that's what I would have taken. I feel like that's like maybe one of the best ones for them to take for us. Let's go Marlin here though. Hoping for a blue off the top, which we hit, which is excellent. And then just getting to send in for another. I think we're actually supposed to grab the Kraken, or are we supposed to grab the Shark here? Or I'm even thinking about the Shallow Water Shark. I think it's maybe still correct to just grab Kraken because it's the most damage and we're trying to just kill them. I think if they get back a Terminator tank or like a War Machine or something, I don't actually care all that much because it's not going to like win them the game. So I believe we should be safe to hook this because they have 3 cards here. If it's triple D-React, I guess if it's triple D-React, then they can block it. Oh, let's just go ahead and not be greedy. Hook is definitely still like a win con in the late game, so losing it for no value maybe doesn't make a ton of sense. Like the thing I was trying to avoid is maybe I guess like double D-React plus equipment block or something. All right, still get them down to 2 though. And like even though they like basically presented every D-React in the game into us, like we're still kind of in a pretty fine spot here. Okay, take the damage. Again, this kind of ends up being a little bit more of like a race matchup than it ends up being like a fatigue matchup, I feel like, in my experience. All right, and let's go ahead and crack some gold here. I think we're almost always just in the Shallow Water, though. I feel like red lore is like not actually all that relevant to us, as I maybe discovered earlier. So let's go ahead and do the Shallow Water, kind of just pitch here. Arsenal another one, and then kind of just hope that they don't hit us with like the last Terminator tank would be the scary thing. I guess one of the last like big attacks. All right, they're going to Teklo here. So maybe trying to like fish for a card that can actually block here. Okay, them pitching the Terminator tank in the Pulse Wave is very good for us, because it maybe means that they don't actually, like, they need to draw into the block card. I think for what it's worth, I definitely punted a couple times this game. But I think even then, it still doesn't matter, right? Because Teklo is just still very, very good. I think if you play it right, it's like very, very tough. Like even if you're not presenting like the fatigue board into them, like I think they're basically running. And it looks like almost every D-React in the game. Yeah, basically every D-React in the game plus unmovables and stuff, and it still like kind of didn't matter. So, anyways, if anyone was still concerned about the Teklo matchup, you can kind of do whatever you want. But I think like even if you present like a clean 60 and your opponent presents fatigue, you can still kind of win, which is pretty cool. So I think this is like a good video to kind of just like a good example to leave in again, like about like the Teklo matchup, just to kind of like show that it's still pretty favored for us, I'd have to say. All right, well, anyways, that is the Goldfins Are Good deck. So again, a lot of this was inspired by kind of Shoma's just Twitter post or whatever. But yeah, I think this deck is like kind of cool. You do just like kind of lose a bit of the consistency of enacting the cannon, which I feel like we definitely felt in a couple of those games. Running 30 blues is definitely like, it's very lean and it lets you do some very powerful things with Ryok, but on the turn to turn like average, just like if you ever break off cannon, you're basically like not getting value for a turn, which feels like really, really rough. So I think there are pros and cons. Again, I'm not saying like which way is better versus worse. This is just kind of like a different style of Marlin that you can maybe consider. I think this is like kind of an interesting deck list. So again, shout out to the Twitter post. But I think like there's something real about like this kind of style of deck, and maybe it gets better even with like Settle the Bill and some of the new cards. All right, but anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.